Hi, friends. I'm Courtney. I'm a performer, speaker, and a writer. I'm a mama to three crazy boys and a super sweet dog. I decided 12 years ago that I needed to create a business that worked for me instead of me working for it. I'm a multi passionate entrepreneur who may be considered a serial entrepreneur by some. But then I realized that all of my businesses focused on connection, community, and creating an incredible experience. I cannot wait to share with you how to make small but mighty changes in your life to affect your overall well being and create a life and business you want to get up in the morning for. That's right, my friends. I am the Renaissance Mama. Hi, friends. It's Courtney, the Renaissance Mama, and I am here today with a very special guest. I've been telling you for the last few weeks that I have been really slacking on my guests lately. So now I am so excited to have Beth here today. Beth, can you let my audience know a little bit about yourself and what you're known for?
Yeah, my name is Beth Syverson, and I am one of the co-hosts and co-founders of Safe Home Podcast. I started it with my 18-year-old son about a year ago. He has been struggling with addiction and mental health issues for the past several years, and we have learned and grown so much, both of us, and we just wanted to not let all of our learnings go to waste. Basically, we want to help other families avoid some of the pain and chaos that we've endured. So we wanted to help educate other parents and kind of make sure people know resources that are out there and things like that, and just share our story to destigmatize mental health and addiction primarily.
I love that. I love that so, so much. I was able to listen to a few episodes and they were very heartwarming. And it was so clear, like how much you care and how much, your story obviously has affected your life so much.
Yeah.
For me, it's super exciting to listen to something like this, especially when we're talking about like teens and struggling teens, is that I'm not there yet. I have
Oh,
a 12, a 10-year-old, and an 8-year-old, all boys.
uh-huh.
But I definitely, I mean, I feel like there's challenges in any season of
Oh,
parenthood.
definitely.
But
And
we, oh, go ahead.
oh, I'm so sorry. Your demographic, your age group is exactly who I'm trying to reach, because I tried to think, what would I have wished I had known when my kid was 12, because
Right.
he started using substances in junior high.
And
So and I had no idea until he was a sophomore. So he hit it very, very well.
yeah.
So
And
what would I have wanted to know? What would have kind of woken me up back then? Because when my son was your oldest one's age, I was like, my son's fine. He'll be fine. I thought he's in baseball. He wanted to be like a Dodgers baseball player for his life. He's super into baseball. And I was like, he would never jeopardize his baseball career to use substances. Oh my goodness. They use substances on the field during practices.
what?
Oh yeah. So my safety net, which I thought was the sports, and that there was some quote unquote zero tolerance for drugs, they were completely oblivious. So there is no safety net. I'm sorry to tell you guys, there's no safety net. The only safety net is good communication between you and your kid, and that is what you can, I'm sure you're already doing it, but can you continue developing and talking about some of these really tough issues that you think they're too young for, but they're probably not too young for.
And I think
Um,
that's a huge important point, because yeah, there's conversations you have and then there's conversations that are tough, and then you realize that they know much more than we give them credit for, especially now with
oh,
everybody being on TikTok and just
oh
receiving
God.
information, whether it's true or not. That was one conversation we
Ah,
have all the time of like, wait a second,
yes.
TikTok not is not the go-to for every source of information, but they take it in and then they like, yeah, you're right. They get so much access to everything. That's just
Yeah. And you want
terrifying.
them coming to you, because hopefully you are going to be better informed or know where the actual truths are
Yeah.
of whatever. You don't want them finding their information elsewhere. So if parents can be accessible, available, not in freak out mode, if at all possible, if they come and tell you something you're not super happy about, to not freak out. Because if you freak out and punish or react very strongly, guess what? Next time they have something to tell you, they're going to not go to you. So to stay calm and grounded, figure it out, and just communicate in an open, non-judgmental way to try to figure out whatever is the problem.
I love that. So you told us a little bit of why you started the Safe at Home podcast, but what has the response been so far?
Well, we had no idea what we were doing at the beginning, although I love listening to podcasts. I'm obsessed about listening to podcasts. But we just started it. It was Joey's idea, my son's Joey, and he was in a moment of recovery for about a month. He was sober and he was doing really great. And he's like, Mom, I really want to help other families. So we started this thing. And shortly thereafter, he did about 6 or 8 episodes with me, and then he relapsed. And I said, Joey, what do you want me to do with this? Do you want me to put it away till you're ready to be back again, or you want me to keep going? He goes, Mom, keep going. We have so much we need to tell people. Please keep going. Tell them about relapse. Tell them that it's super common, and tell them not to give up on people. So I did that. And it's interesting. Sometimes the episodes I think are going to be super impactful. It's like crickets. And then some episodes I'm like, okay, well, this is nice. But then people are like, oh my gosh, that changed my life, or I really learned so much. So it's sort of strange, the podcasting, because you put it out there and sometimes you don't hear anything. It's very much a mostly one-way communication. So I don't know. We just keep putting it out there. We do get wonderful notes sometimes back, or I run into someone like, oh my gosh, that podcast about the non-binary person, that really helped me understand, blah, 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 whatever. So it is making a difference, and people are still listening all over the world, which sort of boggles our minds. So Egypt, they're listening to our podcast in Egypt. So it's pretty amazing technology.
I love that. I love that so much. And it's true. There's so many times where I especially podcasts that you work so hard on and you're like, they're going to love it. This is going to be amazing. And then you're right. You're like, oh, nothing. And then those ones that you kind of throw out there because you need something done. Then it's like, whoa, this one's so good. And you're like, really?
I know, it's strange, but I guess it just shows you just got to keep doing it. Yeah. Just keep putting content out, and some of it will stick more than others. But I think every single one of them. Well, and my son, when we started, I said, Joy, what is going to be your measure of success? Why are we doing this? What are you aiming for? He goes, Mom, if we can help one family avoid some of our pain, that'll be worth it. So we've done that for sure, many, many, many times over.
Amazing. And I think exactly you said, just starting conversations, starting it earlier than these families think they even have to, yes, is really just, getting the word out there and supporting parents, because we all know there's no manual. We don't know what we're doing most of the time, but any support we can get is awesome.
Mm-hmm. Definitely.
What do you think is one question that you receive from families that are looking for support that you often hear? Do you hear something a lot that people come to you for, or anything like that?
So a lot of times people, wonder how did I not know my kid was using drugs for 2 years? That's it. And because they want to know how to not do that.
Of course.
So I really don't know. I think I had that idea in mind that my son will not do drugs because he will not jeopardize his baseball career. So I was kind of in denial and just was not looking very carefully. And kids are super, super, super good hiders. And the substances nowadays, you guys, vaping, they hide it. The first time my son vaped cannabis was in science class. Wow. In class. The teachers don't know that they're doing it. It doesn't smell bad like a cigarette or a joint. Yeah. It smells like cotton candy or fruit or whatever. They clearly marketing this stuff to kids. And then they wear their hoodies or whatever, and then they blow the smoke into their jacket or into their sleeve or something, or it's not smoke, it's vapor. But anyway, so it's way different than when we were kids. There was no way you could hide smoking a cigarette or smoking a joint. I mean, I guess they would go in the bathrooms, but even then it's very obvious.
It was difficult. It was difficult.
You had to really, really work hard. Now the kids are working hard to see how many adults they can con, right? They're like, how many adults can we fool with this stuff? They did it in the bus on the way to baseball games. They're just doing it everywhere. Every single bathroom is just full of vaping, and in his high school. And I went to talk to the school after I realized this, and I said, listen, there's drugs everywhere in this school. Did you guys know? And they played stupid. I'm sure they knew, but they didn't want me to sue them. So they're like, oh, you're kidding. Oh my goodness. I had no idea. I'm like, oh, come on. So the administration, seriously, at least at my son's school, needed to get on board here and help. But because that's where they're using it. That's where they're buying it. It's, that's their hub right there. It's very easy. So yeah, so parents, I don't advocate parents becoming detectives and like strip searching their kids every time they come home from school, but just if you feel a little like something's not quite adding up, kind of maybe look a little harder at what's going on. I also share custody with my son, or I did. Now he's 18, so that's over. But the sharing the custody part. But my ex-husband was actually supplying him with weed. Yes, it is horrible because he's continuing to do it by giving him money. But he said, oh, he's told me he was having trouble sleeping, so I thought it would help him sleep. Oh, I could have killed him because he didn't tell me, of course. Right. My ex-husband or Joey didn't tell me. So for a couple of years, he was using weed, quote unquote, to sleep. And it's just a really, really, really bad idea on a lot of levels to do that.
Well, and it's like that, the whole other concept of like these kids shouldn't be having it this young when their brains are still forming, and like there's so many pieces to this puzzle that is like
absolutely
shocking.
My son's cognitive ability is extremely impaired. Yeah, I'm hoping, and he's still kind of off and on weed, so I'm hoping once he gets off it for good, hopefully, that his cognition will come back, but his memory is totally shot. He also has something called cannabinoid hyperemesis syndrome. Have you ever heard of that? CHS. Most people have not heard of it, including some doctors. Ugh. When you use a lot of weed for a long time, like these are your daily users or your high quantity users, which the kids are using giant quantities of very high intensity THC right now, your stomach kind of revolts, and hyperemesis means a lot of throwing up. So what happens is your stomach is like, oh, this is not okay. And it's giant, many day episodes of throwing up and extremely difficult cramps. Like women who have had this say it's worse than childbirth.
What?
So yeah, he's been in the ER, I think 4 times with it. And the only cure is never to use cannabis again.
Okay.
So, but do you think that this just kind of shows how addictive cannabis is? People think weed isn't addictive. My son keeps going back.
Right.
Despite when he's in the hospital, he's like, I'm never touching this again. This is horrible. And then he picks it up again. So there's that. And then there's also there's a psychosis you can get from cannabis. And a lot of the kids that are killing themselves or going on these rages and rampages, a lot of them have this cannabinoid psychosis, or it's cannabis-induced psychosis, CIP, cannabis-induced psychosis. So these parents that say, oh, well, it's just weed. They're having trouble sleeping. It helps their anxiety. It's better than prescription meds, isn't it? It's just a plant. Oh, no, it's not just a plant anymore. These are very processed chemicals that are nothing like the flower of the cannabis plant. What the kids are getting at the 7-Eleven, or their older brothers are getting them from the vape stores, or it's a totally different thing. And it's so dangerous.
That is crazy. Yeah. And if you don't know, like if someone's not sharing this information, you just wouldn't know.
Yeah, so that's why we're doing what we're doing. My son said at school, he's had teachers hand kids back their vape pens because they think it's like a USB
my goodness,
something or others. It looks like just and they all looked a little different, so it looks just like a little plug-in something or other, like some piece of like a thumb drive or something.
Yeah.
So it's very easy for them to kind of get around the system. It's really, really dangerous.
All right, so this next one, and I'm sure it's a loaded question because you must have tons of these, but what is one of your biggest life lessons you would like to share with everybody?
Yes, so many. I think my biggest one and I like to let people know about this on our podcast too, on Safe Home, is parents, the most important thing you can do is deal with your own stuff. I'm not sure if we can swear on your show. Is go get your own therapy,
Yes.
deal with whatever leftover stuff is from your own adolescence, because when your kids go through adolescence, the first time they're not invited to a party, guess what? That's going to be pulling up all your old feelings of not being invited to that party, or whatever your hangups are from childhood. Those are going to be brought up and magnified. So the best thing you can do, even if, especially if your kid is kind of in trouble or getting off the rails like my son did, the most important thing you can do is take the spotlight off your kid and put it on yourself, and get yourself whatever you need for self-care to stay grounded, so you can stay in that unjudgmental space with your kid, so you can work through those issues that your child's behavior is triggering in you. And then you will be more available to help your kid. It's like put the oxygen mask on yourself first.
Right.
That's the
So
big
even as
thing.
you said that, like I felt like chills. I was like, can't think of it. Oh, like you feel it right away. It is part of you. I didn't even think of that. I have a good friend who recently started going to a therapist because she had a tragedy in her family, and she was so happy with how it's changed her. She quickly got her teenage daughter in there, and it was those exactly. She's like, these tools I wish I had as a teenager. Like imagine if you had them. So she's giving them to her daughter at that early age, because yes, they are amazing. This helps people, right? Why wait until you hit a certain age? Like, yeah,
and the tools are not that complicated.
No.
Breathe, take a moment, kind of analyze what's going on. It's not like brain surgery, but it's just it's tools that everybody needs. And yeah, you show your child that you're going to therapy. Well, guess what? Maybe they won't think therapy is such a bad idea. They'll be like, oh, look, mom's mellowed out quite a bit. She's a lot easier to deal with. Maybe that therapy is helping. And maybe your child, you're modeling this behavior of personal growth forever, right? It's not like you're the bad one, I'm going to fix you. It's like, look, this is a family problem. This is a family system problem. And we're all going to work on this together. So, and in the introduction of our podcast episodes, I say, and I'm walking beside my son as he works on his recovery, and I work on my own personal growth and healing. It's a walking along beside, instead of I'm going to fix you, which I tried the first year after my son sort of had his crisis moment. For the first year, I tried to fix him.
Would be the go-to. You'd be like,
that's
I'm
what
a parent,
doing.
I have to fix it, right? Like you feel like you have to do those things, but yeah, how would you even?
You can't, and it's so helpless knowing that you can do certain things. I don't want to say you're helpless and you can't do anything, but the dragging him to every possible therapist and resource I could find, it didn't work. That was not what he needed. So it worked a lot better when I backed off a little bit, worked on myself, and then was in a more calm place. And then we were able to figure out what was the root of his issue. And then we went that direction.
Yeah. I'm sure you must have a million stories, but what is one moment you're really proud of with your podcast?
With the podcast. Let's see. I am really proud of one episode 40 of Safe Home Podcast. Is a man about my age, I'm in my 50s, and he spent 3 decades as a meth addict. Totally in that world. He was homeless, in and out of prison, all sorts of things. And his sister is one of my best friends. And so I connected with my friend and said, do you think Eric would be willing to tell his story? Because now he's in recovery. He's been recovered for like 6 years and he's doing amazing. And his story is just so powerful. But the thing I was proud of is that I invited my sister and their mom onto the pod, and they all 3 sat and talked about what it was like to watch Eric go through this for 3 decades. And afterwards, I asked my friend, how are you guys all okay? I know that probably brought up a lot of stuff. And she said, yeah, that did bring up a lot of stuff. And all of them had a little bit of therapy afterwards, but that it brought them together. And they hadn't really ever just really sat and talked about it. And that really, it enabled them to pull together and talk through some really painful memories and get some healing in their own family. And then hopefully, our main goal is to destigmatize and show what's possible with some tools and love and hope that never dies. And yeah, this person kept telling me when Joy was in the really, really bad places, she'd say, Beth, don't ever give up hope. Don't ever give up hope. Look what happened to Eric. So that was a good one.
I think, and it's what you said before, it was like, you're doing it with them, right? So maybe those family members had never shared, this is how this affects me when this happens, right? Like then it adds that whole other perspective to everything. That they're not doing it alone. Like, this is what's all happening, all the pieces together.
Yeah, everybody interacts, and no one is an island, right? Everybody's actions influence everyone else, the addicted person and the people around them. So we all have to work together somehow.
Amazing. And Beth, do you have, like, I know you have the podcast, but is it a business as well?
I'm making it one. It's a Patreon based business. Okay. Are you familiar with Patreon, or should I tell you?
Okay. I am, but maybe you want to share it with my audience. That'd be great too.
It's I'm a musician in my other half of my life. I'm a musician, and a patron in the olden days was like someone that would pay a composer to write a piece for them or something, and a lot of times the composer would have to comply with their requests for different things. So it's kind of like you work together. They have the money, you have the creative tools, and you work together to create what you want to create. So this is a direct payment to the artists. So, and my model, you pay what you can. I have a $5, $10, and $25 a month tier. And so people can, whatever their budget allows. And so I like that. I know commercials work for a lot of people. For me, I don't like commercials right in the middle of my talking about drugs and stuff. And now for a commercial break. So this seems to work really well for us. And I'm trying to expand it a bit. I do some speaking about addiction mostly, and some workshops, parenting workshops and things like that. And I'm going to school for 1 year to get a coaching certificate so I can coach families and things like that in a more official capacity.
Oh, I love that. That all sounds amazing. That absolutely sounds wonderful. All right. So I have a few more questions for you. Who is somebody that really inspires you right now?
Oh, okay. That one's easy. Okay. My life coach, Heather Ross, remember I told you the first year, I was just like a hamster on a wheel. I didn't know what I was doing. And I was just like trying to fix. So we finally found a life coach, and she also had a daughter that was addicted to substances. So she had walked our walk. And sometimes, we would tell our story and people would be like, oh my gosh. She'd be like, yep, been there, done that. So I'm like, okay, she understands what I'm going through. Totally. There was no shock and awe at all. So she just helped us so much. It really turned our ship around. Then she got cancer, and she continued working, as soon as she could recover, she continued working. She also has a podcast called Living with Addiction, amazing podcast. And she's just an amazing coach. And then her daughter tragically died of a fentanyl overdose. And she is still out there putting out episodes. She was on our show. She has episodes on her show about what she learned from her daughter, how she doesn't have regrets of how she treated her, especially at the end. Her last conversation was very loving, and she had changed the way she communicates with her daughter. So it was just the walking beside, not like, why aren't you in rehab? Wah! So her last memories with her daughter are peaceful and loving. And what a gift that is, that she's willing to share that tragic story with the rest of us to help us realize, oh my God, we never know. We never know. Fentanyl is a horrible, horrible killer out there. It can be laced in just about anything, including weed. And for her to go out there and share that just tragic story to help other people, she's my hero.
That is an absolutely amazing answer. Sometimes you throw out that question and people are like, oh, this person or that person, but she sounds unbelievable. So I will not only link, obviously, your show, but I would definitely love to link hers as well, because it sounds like one I might need to check out. So
she's an amazing coach. She's still doing coaching, and I highly recommend her. HeatherRossCoaching.com, I think is her website.
perfect.
She's really great.
So what would you say to anyone who is considering starting a podcast or a show or something of their own?
I would say just do it. Just do it. Podcasting is really, you don't really need very much equipment. I don't know, maybe $100 worth of equipment, or 200 maybe, I don't know. Luckily, I'm a musician, so I already had microphones.
Right.
And because of COVID, I had been making videos. Amazing. Those choir, where you have the little boxes.
Yes.
Yeah, so I made those for 2 years because of COVID. Thank you, COVID. And so I knew how to edit. And editing spoken word is way easier than editing music anyway. So I had those tools, but they're not that hard to learn. You can use Descript. It was an amazing podcasting app that you don't have to know anything about editing. You edit like in a Word document. It's amazing. So Descript is an amazing tool.
That one, that's awesome.
Yeah, there's a lot of tools out there. So don't let the tech get you, be an obstacle. It's not that much of a deal for tech. And the other thing I would recommend is just to keep putting out episodes on a regular schedule if you possibly can, and just keep putting them out there. You'll continue to learn, and not to just dwell on the numbers of like, oh my gosh, not enough people are listening, but just keep putting it out there. You'll learn, you'll keep learning, and you'll build kind of a library, and just to keep doing it. Keep doing it.
I love that. And I think too, I don't know about for you, like you in particular, I find you have a very unique voice and niche, right? So was there ever a moment that you're like, should I even be talking about this on a podcast? Like, is this what people want to hear? But I love that you are so honest and open with sharing, right? Like, I think that to me is so beautiful. I find sometimes I'll tell a story or something on the podcast. I'm thinking, is anyone even gonna like want to hear that? Like, why am I telling this story? And then I get the response of like, oh, that was my favorite part when you did that. And you're like, oh, okay, I guess it is. Like, yeah.
I think people really resonate with the truth. There's so much out there that's just fake, and even the reality shows are all fake. I think people resonate with just the truth and vulnerability. And our hope is that by us sharing our story, we're sharing it way more than probably anyone else would need to. But Joey and I talk about it all the time. Are you sure you're okay with the world knowing about all of this? And he's like, yes, Mom, we need to let people learn from us. And we're an open book. So and we have kind of narrowed down our focus. We talk about 4 things in ours: addiction, adoption. We haven't talked about this yet, but my son is adopted, and so that's a big piece of our whole story. Mental health and diversity. So, and eventually, I think I might narrow things down to one of those, or maybe branch off. I don't know, because now it does seem kind of too broad. There's always more. You can get a smaller niche. So I don't know where it's going to go.
I love that. Those are all like really important topics too, right? So whether you pick 1 or 4 or even pieces of all of them, I bet they all really just like resonate with so many people and hit home. And it might not be something that's like so out there already. So it's a great conversation to be had and get started.
Yeah, there's some difficult topics, but podcast is nice. You just listen in your own ears. It's very private. It can be private, and just maybe give someone courage to go talk to a friend, or talk to a therapist, or talk to their doctor, or whoever, and open up the conversation on their end.
Okay, I love that. Beth, before we go, do you have one last piece of advice for any families out there who may be struggling, or anything that you like really just want to share, one last word or a note?
My son's favorite word is nurturing and compassion. If parents can have that energy toward their kids, even if they just found a vape pen in their backpack, even if they just got kicked out of school for whatever, even if they can come from a place of nurturing and compassion, and knowing that their kid is not trying to mess their life up or trying to make you mad, they're struggling, they're in pain. If we can go at it with nurturing and compassion, that will get us a long ways to where we need to go.
Oh, so amazing. Thank you again, Beth, for joining me today. It was absolutely incredible. How can my audience find you? What is the best way to find you?
Well, you can find Safe Home Podcast on any of the podcast apps. Just Google Safe Home Podcast. We have a website, safehomefamilies.com, where you'll see events and speaking engagements and old videos and things like that. So safehomefamilies.com, or just look us up on podcast apps.
Oh, thank you so much. And I'll get that info from you. And I will also post it in my show notes and everywhere else. So I'm going to share it. But thank you again, Beth, for coming. This has been so much fun. Even though the topics were like intense, it was just so eye-opening and great to chat with another busy mama who's, running a podcast, dealing with life, dealing with situations. I absolutely loved it. So thank you so much for coming. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Courtney.
Bye, friends. Well, thank you again for listening, friends. And I know that was a little bit unique. It was a little bit different, but I also think it was a really important conversation to be had. So like always, if you want to chat more, if you have a question for Beth or myself, or maybe you just want to share an experience, hop on www.therenaissancemama.com. And before we say goodbye today, I would love to ask you one last question. What is something that you are concerned about your child? Or if you don't have a child, maybe someone else in your family. I would love to start that conversation and see how you all are really doing. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. Thanks so much. Bye, friends.